72-ish hours or whatever since that Friday night game has been an overreaction to the loss. Just wait and see what's going to happen in September when the games actually matter. So all this overreaction, all this negativity to this preseason game, it's just the preview. It's just an appetizer, right? This fan base is fed up, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, given that Kevin Stefanski is already a very polarizing hire, has the personality of a doorknob, was the least liked coach in the NFL last year, right? My man has zero margin for error. He's got to win games. And so I could sit here and rant about this all day, but we'll end that conversation right here. And we'll see if the vibes are better by the end of this week, after this joint practice week and after this upcoming preseason game. And hopefully the vibes will get better thereafter when the games really matter.
Kevin Stefanski was supposed to get a fresh start in Atlanta. New team, new city, new roster, new chance to prove that everything that went wrong in Cleveland was not really about him. But before the regular season has even started, Falcons fans are already sending a message that should make Stefanski very uncomfortable. They are booing this team in their own stadium during preseason. The offense has looked flat at times. The quarterback situation still feels unsettled. And instead of excitement building around this new regime, the pressure is already starting to build. That is what makes this whole situation so interesting. Nobody is saying preseason decides whether Kevin Stefanski is a good coach or a bad coach. Nobody should judge an entire season based on a few drives in August. But when fans are already frustrated enough to boo before week 1, that tells you something bigger is happening. Atlanta fans are not just reacting to one bad play or one ugly possession. They are reacting to expectations. They looked at this roster. They looked at the weapons on offense. They looked at the new coaching staff. And they expected this team to immediately look different. And that is where Stefanski has a problem. This is not a roster completely empty of offensive talent. Bijan Robinson is one of the most dangerous running backs in football. Drake London gives the offense a big, physical target who can win contested catches. Zachariah Branch brings explosiveness and speed. There are enough pieces here to create an offense that looks dangerous, creative, and aggressive. So when Atlanta comes out and struggles to move the ball, gives up pressure, loses yardage, and has mistakes around the quarterback position, fans are naturally going to look at the coach and ask one simple question. What exactly is the plan? That question is going to follow Stefanski everywhere if this continues. He was brought to Atlanta because the Falcons believed he could organize this offense and get more out of the talent already in the building. That is the whole point of making a coaching change. You do not bring in a new coach because you want everything to look exactly the same. You bring him in because you believe he can unlock something that the previous staff could not. But right now, the early concern is that Atlanta still looks like a team searching for its identity. And the boos make everything louder.
For sure, Zadarius Smith. Shout out to Jakai for the receipts. Mary Kay Cabot put that out. Zadarius Smith actually went and checked Mary Kay Cabot. Now, you know, if you're a Browns fan, I mean, if you're a Falcons fan watching this, just ignore what I'm about to say. But for Browns fans, hey, man, this is why people feel the way about Mary Kay. She's constantly getting fact-checked by NFL players that telling them that what you say is a lie. And there's another lie, as Zadarius Smith does not sign with the Browns. He signs with the Falcons. So just a few more clips here. A few more clips here from the Patriots. I think this was a deep one. Boom, deep ball there. We got to get better. Better camera work there as well. Here's Tua Tagovailoa. Now, it wasn't all bad for Tua, right? While the reports might not have been positive, apparently it was not all bad. Nice little back shoulder there. You can't even see it because it's off frame, so it's so nice. We're going to have to watch it again. It's so nice. You're going to have to watch it. Twiggity twizz eyes, little stop and go. And then he's able.
Fans can forgive mistakes when they can see where a team is going. They can live with a young quarterback throwing an interception if the offense is aggressive and developing. They can accept a bad preseason drive if the next one shows improvement. What becomes harder to accept is when the team looks confused, conservative, or stuck, while everybody keeps talking about how much talent is on the roster. That is when people stop blaming preseason rust and start asking whether the coaching staff is actually putting players in the best position to succeed. Stefanski also walks into Atlanta with something most first-year coaches do not have: baggage from another job. Falcons fans know what happened in Cleveland. They know the Browns had talented players. They know there were years where expectations were high and the offense still became a major talking point. That does not mean every Cleveland problem belonged to Stefanski, because it clearly did not. But it does mean he does not get unlimited patience now. Every questionable decision in Atlanta is going to be compared to something from his Browns years. That is why this preseason reaction matters more than it normally would. Stefanski needs Atlanta to believe this is a different chapter. He needs fans to look at this team and see a coach who learned from Cleveland, not a coach bringing the same questions into another building. Instead, the first real wave of fan emotion has been frustration. And when supporters are already booing before the games count, Stefanski has to understand how quickly that can turn into something much bigger once September arrives. The most important thing for him now is not even the final preseason score. It is whether this offense starts showing a clear identity. Does it look like Stefanski knows exactly how he wants to use Bijan Robinson? Does Drake London become the matchup problem he should be? Does the quarterback room finally get a clear direction? Do the Falcons start playing with the kind of confidence that makes fans believe something new is being built? Because right now, this is not the clean, fresh start Kevin Stefanski probably imagined. The crowd is already restless, the offense is already being questioned, and every ugly drive is making the conversation louder. Atlanta gave Stefanski another opportunity to prove what kind of head coach he really is.
Daniel Flick, because he's one of the reporters that are there. This is what he had to say and how things are going, how a Kevin Stefanski run offense is looking in the team. So the Falcons' first team offense had a drive that went a Tua sack, okay? A Bijan Robinson carry for a tackle for loss. You ain't gonna get paid on that one. And then a Tua fumbled snap. I mean, look. Y'all know me. Y'all, you know what I'm saying? I'm big on giving players, especially young players, a lot of grace. Let them mature, let them matriculate. Tua's not a young player. Tua is not a player. When you see multiple times in 2 weeks back-to-back, you dropping fumbles, one in the actual preseason game, and now you're doing it in these joint practices. How confident can Falcons fans be? Like that's my honest question. I'm not a Falcons fan. I live in Georgia. I have a lot of even family members, long-term friends. Like I live in Georgia, so I want the Falcons to do good. And I just want you to know, again, I was at training camp last week.
Now the pressure is already on him to show that this talented roster is not about to become another offense that leaves everybody wondering why it never reached its full potential. The biggest reason Kevin Stefanski cannot afford for this offense to look ordinary is simple. There is too much talent on this Falcons roster. When you have players like Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Zachariah Branch, people are not expecting some slow, careful offense that spends the entire afternoon trying to find itself. They are expecting pressure on the defense. They are expecting explosive plays. They are expecting a coach who can take all these weapons and make life miserable for whoever lines up across from them. That is why the early frustration matters. Atlanta is not sitting here with an offense that has nothing to work with. Bijan Robinson can change a game with one touch. Drake London can overpower defensive backs and win balls in traffic. Zachariah Branch brings another level of speed and movement that should force defenses to think twice before getting aggressive. When you have that kind of mix, the question becomes less about whether the Falcons have enough talent and more about whether Kevin Stefanski is actually maximizing it, and that is where the pressure starts to build on him. Stefanski has always been viewed as an offensive coach. That means people are going to judge him differently than they would judge a defensive-minded head coach. If the defense struggles, fans might look at the coordinator or personnel. But when the offense looks stale, when drives are getting knocked backward, when there are sacks, pressures, tackles for loss, and basic execution mistakes, Stefanski is going to be standing right in the middle of that conversation. That does not mean every bad rep belongs to the coach. Players still have to execute. Quarterbacks still have to protect the football. Offensive linemen still have to block. Receivers still have to finish plays. But coaching becomes the easiest place to look when the same offense has multiple talented pieces and still does not look dangerous enough. Fans start wondering why certain players are not being featured more. They start wondering why the offense does not look faster. They start wondering why another team seems more prepared in joint practice. And once those questions start, they are very hard to stop. Bijan Robinson is probably the best example.
The move is good there. This Mr. I call him Zach because I don't even want to, I know, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to butcher his name, but he just snatches that thing, dog. But this is what I mean about, like, you know, first off, if you're a Falcons fan, you should be happy about this. Look, I always say, you know what I mean? Or yeah, I'm not sure if I always say this, but I hate when people talk about, oh, but it's, you know, it's only this team. It's only that the team's not good. If you're going to line up in front of me, you're going to get this work, right? It's a lot better for you as a good team or as a good player to do good against the bad player than do bad against the bad player. I'd much rather have people who donkey walk people who are bad rather than, you know, lower to that expectation. But I really do think this Colts defensive line is going to be Swiss cheese. Regardless, still very good to see that physical rep there. Decent ball placement there from Tua. Not a bad situation here. Now, I think I already saw this.
A player like Bijan should force a defense to build its entire afternoon around where he is lined up. He can run between the tackles, bounce outside, catch passes, and become a matchup problem in space. That should create opportunities for everybody else. If defenders are worried about Bijan, that should open windows for Drake London. If they start bringing help toward London, that should create space elsewhere. There should be a chain reaction where one dangerous player makes another dangerous player even harder to defend. That is what Falcons fans are waiting to see from Stefanski. They do not just want to see talent existing on the same field. They want to see the talent connected. They want to see an offense where one player creates an advantage for another. They want motion, mismatches, clean reads, and explosive opportunities. They want to look at the field and feel like Atlanta is making the defense uncomfortable instead of constantly reacting to what the defense is doing. And when that does not happen, those boos become easier to understand. Fans do not need a perfect preseason. What they want is evidence. Give them a reason to believe this is moving somewhere. Give them a drive where the offense looks sharp. Give them a clear identity. Give them a moment where everybody watching says, okay, now I see what Kevin Stefanski is trying to build. The problem is that when the offense instead looks flat, it immediately brings Cleveland back into the conversation. Fair or not, that is the baggage Stefanski carries. Browns fans spent years debating whether the offense was getting everything possible out of the roster. There were questions about quarterback usage, play calling, rhythm, and whether certain players were being put in the best situations. Now, Stefanski has another collection of talented offensive players, and if the same questions start appearing again, people are going to notice very quickly. That is why this is bigger than one preseason result or one joint practice. This is about proving that the offensive potential in Atlanta is real and that Stefanski knows exactly what to do with it. A roster can look great on paper and still become average if the pieces never fit together. Talent alone does not guarantee anything in the NFL. Atlanta brought Stefanski in because they believed he could take those pieces and build something better. That means the standard cannot simply be, the offense will eventually figure it out. Fans want to see signs now. They want to see Bijan Robinson become the center of defensive attention. They want Drake London getting chances to dominate matchups. They want Zachariah Branch creating stress with his explosiveness. And most importantly, they want Kevin Stefanski to look like a coach who understands exactly what he has. And this is where Kevin Stefanski may be walking straight into the most dangerous part of this entire situation: the quarterback decision. Because if Atlanta is already getting booed, the offense is already being questioned, and the fan base is already watching every mistake, then Stefanski cannot afford to let this quarterback battle turn into a weekly distraction. Right now, the pressure is coming from both sides. Tua Tagovailoa can still make throws that remind you why teams have believed in him. His ball placement can be sharp. He can give receivers chances to make plays. And there are moments where the offense looks clean when the timing is right. But then you get the mistakes that completely change the mood. A bad snap, a fumble, a possession that falls apart before it really gets started. Those are the kinds of mistakes that make fans nervous because they are not complicated problems. They are basic operation issues. And when they start happening more than once, people begin asking how much patience the coaching staff should really have. That is especially true when Michael Penix is standing there waiting for his opportunity. Penix does not have to look perfect to create pressure. He just has to look alive. He just has to make a few throws that show arm strength, confidence, and the ability to push the football down the field. The second he does that, fans start comparing every one of his positive reps to every mistake made by Tua. That is how quarterback controversies grow. They do not start because one quarterback becomes flawless overnight. They start because the crowd begins believing the alternative gives the team a better chance. And that is a nightmare scenario for Stefanski if he does not control it early. If he keeps rotating quarterbacks without a clear direction, every practice becomes a scoreboard. Every throw gets judged. Every incompletion becomes evidence for one side. Every big play from Penix becomes another reason for fans to ask why he is not getting more. Every mistake from Tua becomes another argument that Stefanski is waiting too long. This is where Stefanski has to show that he learned something from Cleveland. He cannot allow the quarterback room to become bigger than the team. He needs a plan, and that plan has to make sense when people watch the offense on the field. If Tua is clearly the better option, then the offense has to reflect that. If Penix is giving Atlanta more explosiveness and more confidence, then Stefanski cannot ignore it, simply because one player has more experience. Falcons fans are not going to care about the safe answer. They are going to care about the answer that wins games. And that is what makes the timing so brutal for Stefanski. He does not have 3 months to slowly figure this out. Once the regular season begins, every bad drive matters. Every turnover matters. Every loss makes the noise louder. If Atlanta starts slowly and Penix is sitting on the sideline while fans believe he could provide a spark, Stefanski is going to hear about it immediately. That pressure can get ugly fast. You can already imagine what happens after one rough home game. The offense struggles in the first half. Tua has a turnover. The Falcons go 3 and out. Penix appears on the sideline camera. Suddenly, the entire stadium starts reacting every time something goes wrong. That is exactly the kind of situation a coach wants to avoid, because once the crowd decides it wants the other quarterback, the conversation stops being about patience and starts becoming about whether the coach is being stubborn. And Stefanski cannot afford that label in Atlanta. He already comes into this job with questions attached to his decision-making. That does not mean every criticism from Cleveland was fair, but the reputation exists, and he has to deal with it. If Falcons fans begin believing he is sticking with the wrong quarterback simply because he made the decision and does not want to change it, that will immediately feed into every old complaint that followed him out of Cleveland. That is why this quarterback choice is bigger than just choosing between two players. It is Stefanski's first major test of credibility in Atlanta. Fans want to know whether he will respond to what is actually happening on the field or whether he will lock into one plan and refuse to move until the situation becomes impossible to ignore. The smartest thing Stefanski can do is make the decision based on what gives this roster the best chance to use all of its weapons. Which quarterback gets Bijan Robinson involved without making the offense predictable? Which quarterback can give Drake London opportunities down the field? Which quarterback can handle pressure without the entire possession falling apart? Which quarterback makes this offense feel dangerous? The problem for Kevin Stefanski is that Falcons fans are not looking at him like some unknown first-year head coach who deserves endless patience while he figures everything out. They already know his name. They already know his history. They already watched what happened in Cleveland. And that changes everything. Stefanski may be starting over with a new organization, but he is not starting over with a clean reputation. That is why the boos matter so much. If this were a brand new coach coming straight from a coordinator job, fans might be more willing to brush off ugly preseason football. They might say the system is new, the players are learning, and everybody needs time. But Stefanski has already been a head coach. He has already had years to build an identity. He has already had talented players around him. So Atlanta fans are naturally going to judge him by a higher standard. They are not asking whether Kevin Stefanski can learn how to be a head coach. They are asking whether Kevin Stefanski learned anything from his first head coaching job. That is a completely different kind of pressure. Every time the offense stalls, people are going to compare it to Cleveland. Every time the quarterback situation looks unclear, people are going to remember the quarterback debates that followed him there. Every time the offense looks too conservative or too slow, people are going to ask whether they are watching the same movie in a different uniform. That may not always be fair, but this is the NFL. Once a reputation follows you, you have to change it on the field. And right now, Stefanski has not done enough to silence those questions. The Falcons did not bring him in because they wanted safe football. They brought him in because they believed he could take a roster with real offensive weapons and create something better. That means he has to show fans that this version of Kevin Stefanski is more flexible, more aggressive, and more willing to adjust when something is not working. He cannot just depend on his old reputation as an offensive coach. He has to prove it again. That is where the fan frustration becomes dangerous. Fans can accept losing if they believe the team is building toward something. What they hate is watching the same problems repeat without seeing a real response. If Atlanta keeps making basic mistakes, keeps struggling to establish rhythm, and keeps looking uncertain at quarterback, people are going to stop calling it preseason rust. They're going to start calling it a pattern. And once that word starts getting used, Stefanski has a serious problem. Because Cleveland fans heard similar explanations before. Be patient. Give the offense time. Let the quarterback settle in. Trust the process. Wait until the system comes together. There were always reasons why things might improve later. Sometimes they did improve. Sometimes they did not. But Atlanta fans are not emotionally invested in defending Stefanski's past. They only care about what he is doing for their team right now. That is why his margin for error feels so small. He cannot walk into Atlanta and expect people to give him 2 years before asking questions. He has a talented running back. He has a big-time receiver. He has speed. He has quarterback options. He has a roster that should be able to create explosive offense. If that does not happen, fans are going to point directly at the coaching staff. They are going to ask why players who look dangerous individually do not look dangerous together. And that is the part Stefanski has to solve. A good coach does not just have talented players. A good coach makes talented players look connected. He creates situations where defenses have to choose which problem they want to deal with. He gets Bijan Robinson into space. He forces defenders to respect Drake London downfield. He uses speed to stretch the field. He builds easy throws for the quarterback. He makes the offense look like it has answers. That is what Falcons fans want to see. Instead, the early reaction has been frustration strong enough to produce boos. Again, that does not mean the season is finished before it starts. It does not mean Stefanski has already failed. But it does mean the fan base is watching closely, and they are not afraid to let him know when they do not like what they see. For Stefanski, that should be the loudest warning possible. He does not need to win over Cleveland anymore. He does not need to explain what happened with the Browns. None of that changes what happens in Atlanta. What matters now is whether he can show Falcons fans that the problems attached to his name are not about to follow him into another locker room. And now Kevin Stefanski is reaching the point where preseason stops being just preseason. Not because the final score suddenly matters, but because the same questions keep showing up. The offense has talent. The quarterback room has options. The coaching staff has had time to install the system. Yet Falcons fans are already frustrated enough to boo, and that tells you the patience level in Atlanta is nowhere near unlimited. That is why this next stretch matters so much for Stefanski. He does not need to prove that the Falcons are a finished product in August. Nobody reasonable expects that. What he does need to prove is that this team is moving in the right direction. Fans need to see progress. They need to see cleaner football. They need to see an offense that actually looks like it understands what it wants to be. Because right now, the biggest concern is not one bad drive. It is the feeling that Atlanta may not be getting enough out of what it already has. Look at the pieces Stefanski is working with. Bijan Robinson should be one of the easiest players in football to build an offense around. Drake London gives you size and physicality outside. Zachariah Branch gives you speed and explosiveness. There are multiple ways to attack a defense with this group. If the Falcons still look slow, predictable, or confused, the heat is naturally going to land on Stefanski. And that heat is only going to increase once the regular season starts. In preseason, Stefanski can still talk about evaluation. He can rotate players. He can experiment with combinations. He can say the offense is still installing things and trying different looks. Once week 1 arrives, those explanations disappear fast. Fans are not going to care about evaluation when the games count. They're going to care about points, wins, and whether this offense looks better than what they saw before. That is why Atlanta booing this early should get Stefanski's attention. Fans normally enter a new coaching era looking for reasons to believe. They want to convince themselves that the new staff has figured something out. They want to see one explosive drive and imagine what it could become. They want to see young players flying around and feel like the future is finally moving forward. When that excitement turns into frustration before the regular season has even started, the coach has to understand that he is already losing some of that benefit of the doubt. And Stefanski does not have much benefit of the doubt to waste. His time in Cleveland guarantees that every questionable decision is going to get extra attention. If the quarterback choice goes wrong, people will immediately question his judgment. If Bijan Robinson is not being maximized, people will question the system. If Drake London disappears for long stretches, people will ask why the offense cannot create opportunities for him. If Atlanta repeatedly starts games slowly, people will ask why Stefanski cannot get the team ready. Those are not small questions. Those are the questions that can define an entire coaching tenure. And the most dangerous thing for Stefanski would be convincing himself that all of this is just preseason noise. It might be noise right now, but noise becomes pressure very quickly in the NFL. One bad September loss changes everything. 2 bad losses and the quarterback debate becomes national. 3 bad performances and suddenly every Browns criticism gets brought back into the conversation. That is exactly what Stefanski has to prevent. He needs to make the Falcons look prepared. He needs to give this offense an identity that fans can recognize immediately. Maybe that means leaning heavily on Bijan Robinson and forcing defenses to stop him. Maybe it means creating more aggressive opportunities downfield. Maybe it means making the quarterback decision earlier instead of letting uncertainty hang over the team. Whatever the answer is, Atlanta cannot spend the first month of the season still searching for it. The talent on this roster raises the expectations, and that is both the opportunity and the danger for Stefanski. If he gets it right, Atlanta can suddenly become one of those teams nobody wants to play. The offense has enough weapons to make defenses uncomfortable, and a few early wins would completely change the atmosphere around this team. But if he gets it wrong, there will not be anywhere to hide. Nobody is going to look at this roster and say Stefanski had nothing to work with. Nobody is going to accept a season of wasted offensive potential without asking hard questions. That is why the boos are important. They are an early warning that Falcons fans already expect more. Kevin Stefanski wanted another chance to show that his Cleveland chapter did not define him. Atlanta gave him exactly that chance. Now he has to prove he can take talented players, make the right quarterback decision, and build an offense that actually looks dangerous. And that is why Kevin Stefanski is already under real pressure in Atlanta. The regular season has not even started, yet Falcons fans are already booing. The offense is being questioned, and the quarterback situation still does not feel completely settled. This is not a roster with no talent. Stefanski has Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Zachariah Branch, and enough weapons to build a dangerous offense. So if Atlanta continues to look flat, fans are not going to keep blaming preseason. Eventually, they are going to look directly at the head coach. That is what makes this so important for Stefanski. Atlanta was supposed to be his fresh start after Cleveland. But if the offense struggles, the quarterback decision goes wrong, and talented players are not being maximized, those old questions are going to follow him immediately. The good news is that Stefanski can still change the entire story. A strong start, a clear offensive identity, and the right quarterback decision could turn the mood around fast. But if these early warning signs continue once the games actually count, those preseason boos could become a lot louder. So what do you think? Are Falcons fans judging Kevin Stefanski too early? Or are they already seeing signs that Atlanta made the wrong hire? Let me know in the comments, hit the like button, and subscribe for more NFL stories and updates.